You know, most people think what they do or what they make is incidental, but we think there are small miracles happening all around us. All you have to do is slow down, turn down the road less traveled. So hang on while we educate you, inspire you, and entertain you as we stroll, if you will, off the beaten path. With the popularity of specialty roasted coffees made with fresh beans, little cafes like this have been popping up all over the place. We're in the quaint little town of Newmarket, Virginia, home of Stonewall Jackson's headquarters way back in the Civil War. Now it's the headquarters for a great cup of coffee. Let's go speak with Kevin Fox. He's the head roaster here at Jackson's Cafe. Wow, this coffee is delicious, and this is a house blend. What sort of coffee is this?
That is a blend that Monty, the original roaster here, came up with. It's a battlefield blend. A portion of every cup or bag of that we sell goes to the Battlefield Foundation for Land Preservation.
And this is the Shenandoah Valley, Virginia here, and this is where Stonewall Jackson had his headquarters during the Civil War.
Yeah, during 1862, he was headquartered here.
Fantastic. Well, let's learn some more about the coffee. Now, you have roasters in several locations, but the one right here is a big special one.
Yeah, this is the bigger one. Monty had one in Edinburgh, I have one in Dayton, and then Monty put this one in last year. It's the other ones are 5K.
Let's see it.
All right, this one is prettier to look at, and it's twice the capacity of the other two roasters.
It doesn't look that huge, but how much coffee can you roast with this?
It'll do 22 pounds, 10 kilos. Wow. Yeah, and so you can realistically get about 80 pounds of coffee out of it an hour.
Holy goodness.
Realistic output.
Now this is an unroasted bean right here.
This is the green bean. The coffee is picked off of shrubs, similar to, I guess most people could relate to, is like a cherry that you pick off a cherry tree. It'll have a meat or like a fruity pulp around it, and this coffee bean is the same thing as a cherry pit.
Oh, no kidding.
And they have a process, either a natural or water mechanical process, where they'll strip the fruit off and expose the bean or the pit and then dry it, so that we can roast it.
And then you put it in this contraption. You would put them up here?
We load it up in the hopper, heat the drum. It's a horizontal drum that rotates, spins over a propane burner.
How many degrees?
It varies depending on the bean. Usually we drop it around 400 degrees. And we'll roast the beans anywhere from 390 degrees up to 455, 460 degrees, depending on the roast or type of bean.
What's this whole thing down here?
What this is there's a sight glass here. When it's running, that's full of beans. You can watch the change that happens during the process. This is what we call a trier or a sampler. You open it up, and the beans will fall in that tray, and then I'll insert it and rotate it around, and they'll drop back out. So when I'm getting near the roast, you get down to the end of the roast, and seconds are counting. It's changing quick, so you're constantly pulling in and out, checking. You're basically looking at it visually, smelling it. When you decide it's ready to drop, when it's where you want it, it's just like pulling a steak off a grill. You know, you pull it off and it's still cooking even though it's off the heat. Well, these beans are, say, 450 degrees. They're still roasting. So you open this, the beans will eject out. There's a fan under this screen. It'll pull room air over the beans, and it'll get them to room temperature within about 2 minutes.
And you have quite an assortment of beans from all over the place.
We have, right now, let's see, 14 and 9. Right now, there's 23 different coffees from 23 different countries. Then there's several blends that we make with that. So,
and the countries are, you mentioned geographically, are located specifically in where?
Basically what we call the coffee belt. It's 20 degrees north or south of the equator, including Hawaii. Hawaii is the only place in the U.S. that coffee will grow.
Oh, no kidding.
And
now you roast the beans here. History of this machine is unique as well. This is no typical coffee roaster. It was built for you specifically?
Yeah, Monty wanted this one. He ordered it from Turkey. And so he ordered it about a year and a half ago. It was a long process to get it here. Just there was problems in Turkey. That's when we first started hearing about ISIS and the trouble in Turkey. And he was getting nervous because there was a lot of problems breaking out in cities nearby the town where this was being built. And so he was sweating that, but they got it shipped, and there was problems in the shipping process. Got it here. It landed in New York, then there was problems with customs. Then he got it here to Newmarket. Of course, Newmarket, or like most towns or municipalities, they don't know what to do with a coffee roaster as far as proper venting, you know, fire safety. So it sat here for, I think I have this right, I think it sat here for 6 or 7 months before he got the final okay to roast with it. But we had a ribbon cutting plan for it on a Saturday. He passed away unexpectedly the Sunday prior to that.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I came into the picture. His wife asked me to roast his outstanding coffee orders from his existing customers, and I was in here for 2-3 months roasting coffee, and I never had any intentions of owning a coffee shop, but she wanted to sell the coffee shop, and she hadn't found a buyer. She was going to close the place, and just, you know, we talked about the historical significance of this building and of this town and this street corner. It just seemed a shame to close this place. It seemed like a unique place. And
what's so surprising with you, Kevin, is that this came out of a battle zone, a civil war in Turkey, and 5 generations ago, this very building had some very important historical value from the Civil War.
Yep, went from one battle zone, basically landed into another. But yeah, this was General Jackson's headquarters in 1862. There's a plaque out on the corner where he stood out here. Valley Pike, Route 11 in front of us, is the same Valley Pike they marched up and down in the Civil War.
The Valley Campaign.
During the Valley Campaign. So he'd stand out at the corner, review his troops as they moved up and down the valley. 1864, the Battle of Newmarket, this was actually a hospital.
Incredible.
During the battle. So a lot of history right in this building.
And the unique twist with you is not only do you roast these beans here now, but you ship them to clients all around the globe.
Yeah, we got to know some people. There's people we know went to Moscow, Russia, work at the embassy, and they got there, they wanted our coffee. So we go to Moscow, and kind of a funny story is some of our beans come from Ethiopia, from Africa, and we actually get beans from Africa shipped here. We roast them, bag them, box them, and ship them to people we know that are at the State Department and Dakar, Senegal, in Africa.
My goodness.
So,
and look at these labels over here. This is unique, too. Explain all these labels. Why? Look at this Blueberry Morning, the Cookie Guide. These all seems like they're specialty orders, aren't they?
They are. We have our standard, what you call a single origin. If you want a Sumatra, that's from Indonesia. You know, the Colombia, Guatemalan, a lot of people are familiar with.
Where do you get this crazy coffee stuff? Where does all, specifically, what's that? What's that a mixture of?
These are private labels. The Cookie Guy in Berryville, he worked with Monty, and they just started blending different coffees, and they would work, and you get several coffees, and you start adding and coming up with a blend, and you just figure out what somebody wants. If they want a fruitier tasting coffee, you start adding like maybe a little bit of natural processed Ethiopian. If they want more chocolate notes, we'll put some Colombian or Brazil in, and you just do that. And the Cookie Guy in Berryville, he pretty much came up with his own blend and called it the Benjamin Berry blend. And so if you want that, if you like that coffee, that's the only place to get it. It's a unique blend to him.
What if you were someone who owned a restaurant and you called up and you want a special batch?
If they know what they want, we can roast it and deliver it. If they want a unique blend, then we'll usually go to their restaurant after hours and just take several coffees up there, brew them, sample them, and just do different blends in cups and keep working it down to something they really like and want to call their own.
So that's the true essence of specialty coffee.
Yeah, and it's just endless. Yeah, you can make it unique to yourself. I could have 20 stores within a 10-mile radius, and they could all have different coffees.
How many beans do you have on hand? Different sorts of beans. Like
as far as
this says Brazil.
The different beans in the back where we store the beans, we have 23.
Wow.
And then the amount of blends you can use, you can come up with just endless amount of blends from that.
And I do love coffee. Now let's change gears and go down the interstate a couple of miles and investigate something exciting for downhill transportation. There's a lot more to mountain biking than you might assume, and it all starts right here. I'm joined with Derek Clifton, who is the mountain bike supervisor, actually the manager for this whole resort's mountain bike operation. Derek, tell us a little bit about how you began and what you have to offer for all those folks out there that might have a question or two.
Absolutely. So it actually all began with a proposed job opening on the Facebook page of the resort, and long story short, I applied to be a mechanic here, and then all of a sudden everything kind of snowballed into me helping build the trails, and then working on bikes, and then being involved in inventory and everything else, and now it's just become a management position where I oversee building the bikes, building the trails, ordering inventory, and everything else that comes with running a bike park. It's a really great experience, and I'm super thankful to have come this far.
And he has come a long way. And so have we. And you always think about mountain bikes. You might think of your kids. Boy, they got a new bike at Christmas or for a birthday, but this is no child's play around here. Some of these bicycles cost upwards of several thousands of dollars. Can you tell us a little bit about these bikes, what makes them so special and what makes them so expensive?
Absolutely, yes. So these bikes are fairly expensive, and one would be quite shocked when they saw the price tag for one of these. So
Derek,
what makes
show me
them
this
very
over here.
special? Absolutely. So what we have here is a 2016 Trek Session 8. This is our rental bike for this year. Basically what makes it so expensive is that we have this large dual crown fork here that will soak up about 8 inches of suspension. You know, you can roll over.
Looks like a car suspension there.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, you know, speaking of cars, it has hydraulic brake lines, which you would see on your car. They use regular brake fluid. It's not your standard cable disc brakes. You know, there's little reservoirs up here where you put the brake fluid in, just like your car.
Right in here, no
Absolutely,
kidding.
yes, sir. And so, you know, as well, there's a big, long coil that is in the fork here to help with that nice plush suspension that we want on the trail, so we're not getting beat up while we're out there. You know, it's really helpful when we get a little bit older. We're super thankful for all that travel.
Derek, what about this huge spring under the seat
Yes,
post?
sir. So this is the rear coil suspension that we have on this bike. Again, this is about 7.5 inches of suspension, so it's going to help us with those rougher terrains or those jumps or drops that we're hitting out there on the trails.
Now look at this little sprocket up here. On my road bike, it's huge. This thing looks like it's only about 30 little sprockets on there, spokes, not
Yes, sir.
sprockets.
Yes, sir. Yep. So this is just a regular standard 36-tooth front cog. After that, you know, we have just a standard 11-speed setup for this bike.
Look at the
It's
brake.
great.
A disc brake?
Disc brakes front and rear, and this actually has 2 pistons on it as compared to your normal cross-country bike, which only has 1 piston. So you're going to get double the stopping power, just like on your car.
What does it take to put one of these together? You said these are all new, and these are actually coming in the mail as we speak.
Yes, sir. They are on their way. This one actually was just built this morning by myself. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's why it looks all nice, fancy, and new here, ready to go out there and rip on the trails.
Rip on the trails.
Yes,
Let's talk
sir.
about the trails.
Absolutely.
Now you said that the designer of the trail came from Canada, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Whistler in British Columbia. They come here, they design the trails for us. They do some of the work as well as we do. It's a great experience for our trail builders here to learn and progress their knowledge so that we don't have to be dependent on other companies, where we can start building things ourselves in-house.
Give me a rundown. The person comes here, they obviously can rent a bike.
Yes, sir.
What's the next step?
The next step, after you get all of your equipment and your bike, we offer packages for first-time people who have never rode downhill or any sort of gravity-fed trails. So in that, they learn, you know, body position on the bike, braking, how to handle the bike, things like that. And after that, they're ready to go on the trails.
The tools of your trade.
Yes, sir.
And this is a road bike over here, but you take all these, you start with from scratch. You get something in the mail, for example.
Yes, sir.
I saw one of the boxes just a little bit earlier. So you put the bike up here and you start, what do you do first?
Absolutely. So actually over here we have a bike that's already disassembled that we haven't quite put together quite yet. So basically when it comes in the mail, it looks as such.
Oh, great. Let's see.
And then we just kind of start taking all the foam and the packing off, and we start assembling it. And we use almost every tool that we have up there behind you on our tool rack. It's just a quick process. Usually takes about an hour to fully put it together.
An hour?
Yes, sir, to thoroughly put it all the way together.
And then you get on the chairlift, just like you would if you were going to go hiking or
Hiking, skiing, anything like that. Just like that. We take some of our ski chairs off, and we put bike trays on. So essentially what happens is that the bike tray will come around the bull wheel. You'll push your bike right up in there, and it sits in this nice little home for the ride up to the top. And then you'll just sit on the ski chair just like you do during the winter, right behind there. And that's it.
Right on, Derek. Let me just grab one of these
Yes,
things.
sir.
Now, this is par for the course. This is a standard helmet. Now, my bicycle helmet, as you saw earlier, doesn't have this big front mask on it. What's the purpose of this?
So this offers face protection in case we do accidentally fall down out there, and it does happen. So this just protects our moneymaker, and helps us look beautiful for the rest of our lives.
Maybe
That's
for you.
right. Yes, sir. And so this visor, it just really kind of helps keep the sun out of our eyes while we're out there.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Now, riding down the trails, just like in hiking and skiing, they have different calibers. Like in skiing, it's a black diamond, for example, is the most difficult. How do they categorize those trails, and what do you have to offer out here?
So actually what we have out here, we're a progressive bike park. You know, who are riders that we really try to cater to are people who've never done this before or who are just learning. We want to build the skills here before they move on. Yes, absolutely. So before they move on to much more aggressive terrain, you have to learn somewhere. We all learned how to ride a bike on training wheels. So, you know, it's just a progressive step, and you go further and further until hopefully one day you become a professional.
Well, I don't know if we all aspire to do that, but just to get down the mountain in one piece.
Yes, sir.
You get people of all ages here. What do you suppose nowadays is the average age for
So the
mountain bikers?
average age is actually, I would say, anywhere between 40 and 50 years old
Can
that
you
we
believe
see
that
here.
There's hope for us, folks.
There is hope. There is hope. Yes, sir. And so it really just depends on where you go, what bike park. You know, naturally more aggressive trails. We're going to cater more towards the younger, more daring folks such as myself.
Oh, yes.
Or you know, things like here at our bike park, we have quite a few families that come out here because we're a very family-oriented resort and bike park. So we have a lot of father-son, father-daughter combos, or you know, mother-daughter, mother-son. We've seen it all here, and we're very appreciative to have anybody come out here.
Great. Now, I saw some of the obstacles that you had in the video that you have to advertise all this stuff. Let's pull this bike off here, Derek.
Absolutely. Here, I'll help you out here.
Now, some of the bigger ones, a guy like my size might just topple over with this big top heavy bike. How do you tell people to control this thing when they're actually hitting some of those big boulders? Like I've seen people actually ride up over rocks the size of a car.
Oh, absolutely. So really what we help people do in our Find Your Bearings package, which is just the package that helps us learn how to get down the mountain safely and yet have a great time. So what we do as part of that lesson is that we teach body positioning on the bike and how to modulate the brakes so that we're not using just our rear brake and putting us in an uncontrolled skid. So we're actually using
Then you don't want to use
brakes.
the front brake or you'll topple overhead.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Sorry about that.
That's correct. Yeah, we use both brakes at the same time to make sure that we got good stopping power and that we're not going to be out of control coming down the mountain.
What's the highest speed I'm going to hit on one of those trails up there? The toughest trail.
The toughest trail, I would say you're going to be looking at speeds upward of 30 miles an hour if you're really getting after it.
Man, 30 miles per hour, and if you beat the big one, you're going to get hurt.
That's right, that's right. So actually our fastest section on our trail is leading up to the biggest jump that we have at the resort. So you're going to have a lot of speed just to make sure that you make it all the way across.
How much air can you get with one of these things?
You can get as much air as you would like to. Every jump
More
is
than a fresh of breath here,
yes,
right?
more than a fresh of breath there. Enough air to scare you sometimes, and you're like, oh, okay, better slow it down a little bit. But you know, it's all about what you feel comfortable with and how much speed, how much air you want to get. And you know, like we said before, we're a progressive progressive bike park, so that means that you can get as much speed as you want. You can go slow, you can go fast, or you can get as much air as you want or feel comfortable with.
I like it. Now, do people bring a bag lunch and sort of stop mid?
Absolutely. So what actually happens is when people take breaks from the bike park, they like to come in here. We have a very open concept here, and we love for people to come back and ask us questions because knowledge is power.
Knowledge
we all
is power.
have to learn somewhere. Like me, I was always asking questions. I was always being nosy and maybe a little pushy sometimes, but I
could
to
tell
learn.
that.
Yes, sir. So, you know, I just want to learn, and I want to pass that on to other people who are just getting into the sport and teach them as much as we possibly can.
You would never know that this little hidden gem was out here. How long has mountain biking been popular?
Mountain biking has been popular for years and years, much longer than I've been around. Bike Park specifically has really grown and grabbed a stronghold just in the past, I would say, 10 years. We've had some local bike parks that have popped up and have really got on and really tried to reach out to the broad rider selection.
Great. Now, let's get one statement from you. For all you novice mountain bikers, or for those of you thinking about taking up this sport, it's not like riding around your street on the flat ground in the city or anything like that. Whole new spectrum of things to do and things to enjoy. What would be the best statement for an introductory cyclist? People like you at home right now watching this might want to get out this weekend.
Hey, if you want to come out this weekend, we would love to have you. You know, just bring a great attitude and we'll teach you the rest.
I like it. Nothing to do that. 1, 2, 3, and here we go. Well, it looks like fun, right? Now let's head down the interstate another 100 miles or so to Racine, Virginia, and meet a guy in a place that you've probably never heard of. Back in the good old days, before the Civil War, this was called the breadbasket of the Confederacy. Most of the food, the grain that is, was grown right in this region. And as a result, they needed some more efficient ways to produce that grain, and that was called the grain reaper. I'm joined right now by the director. He's superintendent of the Cyrus McCormick Farm right here in Racine, Virginia, David Frisk. Tell us a little bit about this facility. You are related to Virginia Tech in some shape, manner, or form. Is that correct?
Yes, we are one of 11 agricultural research facilities in the Virginia Ag Experiment Station in the College of Agriculture at Virginia Tech.
Great. And what specifically do you do right here?
Most of our research centers around beef, cattle, and forages, grazing, rotational grazing type research. We also do forestry research and some sheep research.
Let's go inside and see this. What is this building right here?
Great. This is our small museum at the farm.
Oh, fantastic.
It's dedicated to the memory of Cyrus McCormick and the invention of the reaper.
Now, the reaper was patented first back in the early 1800s, or mid-1800s. When was that?
Correct. 1834 is when Cyrus McCormick received the first patent on a mechanical reaping machine, as you see in front of us here.
Let's take a look at this thing. Explain how this...
Back in the old days, most of the grain was harvested by hand, mechanically, with a scythe. And so what the reaper did was you actually drove it with a horse.
The horse is out there.
Horse is out front. You have a reciprocating cutter bar, which reciprocates back and forth. This would be the reel that presses the grain against the cutter bar. And once the grain fell, it fell on the table back here. And then you had a man walk beside the reaper. And
like over here.
When the table was full, he mechanically reaped it off.
So he had a big rake like this?
Yes, he had a wooden rake that he raked it off. And then people would come back afterwards and shock it up so it would dry.
So they lay it out somewhere on the field or something?
No, actually they make shocks out of it. They put it in bundles and stand it up so it would dry naturally outside. And then once it was dry, they take it into a barn and use a threshing floor to actually thresh the grain from the stalk.
Now, was Cyrus McCormick unique in developing this? Because he must have just been a kid when he got this patented.
Actually, Cyrus's father invented most of this machine as we see in front of us, but there were some things he couldn't figure out. So as the story goes, he gave it to Cyrus and a black blacksmith by the name of Joe Anderson. And they worked on that machine from February of 1831 until July of 1831. And just a half a mile away, down in the little town of Steele's Tavern, they first successfully tested a mechanical reaping machine.
And in those days, most of the ag around here was, in fact, grain.
A lot of grain was grown in the Shenandoah Valley. There were a lot of livestock, but there was a lot of grain, small grain, especially wheat, grown in the Shenandoah Valley.
Now, one thing happened is that Cyrus got the idea to go out west and investigate where the reaper was actually going to be used in greater amounts.
That's right. In the late 1840s, Cyrus traveled out west and came back supposedly a changed man because he thought that the demand for the reaper was going to be in the East Coast, in the Shenandoah Valley. But once he saw the great expanses out west, he realized that, no, that's where the demand for the reaper is going to be. And so he'd always had issues with shipping his product west, shipping the reapers west. Shipping wasn't that reliable back in those days.
Yeah.
And so the family decided they were going to move west. They initially moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, and quickly realized they hadn't moved far enough west. And so they ultimately settled in Chicago and built their first factory in what is now downtown Chicago.
Fantastic. So, David, Cyrus came back from the Midwest and started developing the machine, but I guess the manufacturing moved out west as well. But over the ensuing years, into the 1900s, after the Civil War is long gone, his descendants, Cyrus's descendants, he had several children, I suppose.
Right.
They gifted it to Virginia Tech, which is where you come in.
That's correct.
And you've been with Virginia Tech here at McCormick Farm for over a decade.
Right. It was in 1954, actually, the family, the McCormick descendants, gifted the farm to Virginia Tech to be used as an agricultural research facility. And the actual agricultural research facility opened in 1955.
Wow.
As to be used for agricultural research. Most of our research now centers around beef, cattle, and forages, grazing type research. We also do forestry research. and operate the Virginia Sheep Breeders Ram Performance Test Center.
Fantastic. The global impact of the Cyrus McCormick farm is significant in that some of the large equipment that has been an offshoot of this original grain reaper are what?
Well, that's how International Harvester got its start. I think it was in 1901 that there were 5 companies that merged. The 2 largest of those companies was the McCormick Reaper Works and the William Deering Company. But those 5 companies merged to form one company, which we now know today as International Harvester.
Well, David, you have all these little mini reapers, it looks like, and a lot of times Cyrus must have tried to figure out how to sell the things, right?
Right.
And he would sell them not just to normal farmers, but to big groups of farmers.
Well, what these replica reapers are, they were actually salesman models. And back in the day when they were selling these, they really couldn't load up a reaper on a truck and take it out to demonstrate it to a farmer. So they built actual working replica miniatures that they could take out and show farmers how the reaper actually worked. And as you see in this display case, it shows the progression of the reapers from the early 1930s until the late 1880s, and shows how it took actually a lot of the manual labor out of it, because some of the later models actually tied the bundles, the shocks, and dumped them out on the ground. So it really mechanicalized the whole process.
So would the second guys just stand the bundles up in the field and let them drive that way?
That's right.
And what would one of these cost in those days?
I don't know about the later versions, but I think the original Reaper sold for about $50 is what the original Reaper sold for when they first started producing them.
So the old salesman would just carry one of these, or just have a couple of them on hand?
No, he'd carry one because he only had one version at a time.
I see. So are these generations here? Like one is an older one?
Well, if you read the little tags, the little nameplates, it describes that. But it shows how the technology progressed over time until you got to the very sophisticated reapers in the late 1880s.
Well, thanks for joining us on our debut edition of Off the Beaten Path. Be sure to check your local listings coming up this fall for our weekly series, Off the Beaten Path. See you then. I'm Pete Churney.